Into history books to understand India's once a big maritime dominance in the global position. Old-time outsourcing. It's pretty much what the IT sector does today. Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj can be called as first time under the leadership of Pandit Nehru. There was very high cost of financing because back then India was a very... Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Recently, I came across an article written by Mr. Michael Pinto. He is the former Secretary of Ministry of Shipping. He in his article elaborated about the 70,000 crore package that Govt of India has recently announced to stimulate and grow the shipbuilding sector domestically. This is because in today's date, 90% of the world's shipbuilding happens in three nations: Japan, Korea, and of course China. This made me wonder why India today stands at this place. As I read further, I even found out that out of the 61 shipyards present in India, only 8 are really operational. In fact, majority of shipyards are mostly used for shipbreaking rather than shipbuilding, which is actually a secondary activity with very low value. So what got India here? I delve into history books to understand India's once a big maritime dominance in the global position. From the time the great Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj established India's navy to the point we reach today where we have to be at the receiving end of Asian counterparts. Can the initiatives of the government make India a shipbuilding superpower once again? In the medieval era, southern dynasties such as Cholas built strong naval fleets that projected power across Bay of Bengal and Southeast Asia. Their ships, typically teak-built and robust, were not just for trade, but even for military expeditions. Under the king Rajendra Chola I, naval raids had reached Sri Lanka, the Maldives, parts of Sumatra, and Java. It established many tributary relations for India. Other kingdoms also, like the Pandyas, Cheras, Pallavas, Kalingas, also maintained local shipyards supporting coastal trade. This spoke about the importance our kings gave to shipping and shipbuilding in-house, domestically. The Indian subcontinent was a major hub back then in the Indian Ocean for trade networks like spices, textiles, precious stones. All sailed outwards, whereas horses, metals, luxury goods sailed inward. With the rise of the Mughal Empire, India's strategic focus shifted inland. While the Mughals held a significant control over river line, their transport, like across Ganges, Yamuna, Brahmaputra, ensured that India could not build a strong maritime shipbuilding sector. Their navy was limited, often relying on the Rajputs and Marathas or coastal powers for naval fortification. It's obvious the Mughals came from the region which was highly landlocked and they intended to move from India to their landlocked regions. So they did not have any reason or any focus or any emphasis towards growing India's ship or maritime activity. Meanwhile, on the other hand, European companies like the Portuguese, the Dutch, the British, they exploited Indian ports back then. Yes, this is much before the British came to India. They exploited Indian ports and gradually monopolized the long distance shipping, because this was a very large space that Indian shipbuilding had vacated. So, backed by superior naval technology and political leverage, local shipbuilders often built vessels for European traders, but under foreign management and control. So it was, you can say, old-time outsourcing. It's pretty much what the IT sector does today for Google, Amazon. They own the product, they own the IP, and we do the servicing. So essentially, we did everything for them. Entered Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj in the 17th century. He recognized that the coastal control was vital for sovereignty. He established a modest but disciplined navy with shipyards in Konkan, and he also built in Sindhudurg, Vidyadurg, and other maritime. His navy's role was clear: protect Konkan trade, monitor foreign ships, intercept pirates, support coastal defense. Though not massive, it marked a strategic shift. Maritime defense was now part of an Indian polity and not just an afterthought. This was the first time in India's history when shipbuilding took center stage and maritime activities gained massive prominence. Undoubtedly, the great Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj can be called as the father of India's navy. This was the best period of India dominating the global seas also in commercial and naval vessels. Then the downfall began. Under the British colonial rule, India's shipyards became tools for serving imperial interests. Almost like anything else, Indians could not do anything for themselves, and as expected, the British exploited anything and everything they could get. The historic Bombay Dockyard, also known as Western India Shipbuilding and Engineering Company, received patronage and built ships for the Royal Navy, that is the British royalty, as well as, of course, the East India Company. Many Indian craftsmen and engineers worked under colonial supervision. But strategic direction, technology, capital, and profit remained with the British. So from being Infosys, we went on to become a GCC. This is how actually the shipbuilding industry moved back then. And I am giving these examples because they truly represent the state that Indian shipbuilding was back then. Indian shipyards rarely got any commercial orders from Indian ship owners. The colonial policy did not support indigenous shipbuilding at scale. In fact, it did not encourage anything apart from building ships for the Royal Navy as well as East India Company. The British Empire can owe its success to the great global trade that the Britishers established. After 1947, India inherited a few shipyards and a large coastline, but decades were lost in laying foundations. Back then, India was witnessing a strong period of industrialization, and there was focus on domestic production. The first 3 5-year plans by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru did industrialize the economy, but it was a case of setting the priorities. Shipbuilding was never the center because more important items like steel, cement, sugar, everything else was of critical significance to India. Hence, cement capital goods gained precedence and shipbuilding got left out in the process. However, there were additional reasons beyond this. There was an infrastructure shortage. India did not have a lot of money back then, and we refrained from taking any IMF loan. In fact, the only time India has taken IMF loan was in 1991-92. We did not resort to any loans, and we decided that whatever little resources we have, we will channelize it carefully. There was very high cost of financing because back then India was a very small, bankrupted economy. Also, there was no real strategic policy for shipbuilding. Most focus stayed on improving railways network because inbound within intrastate trade mattered a lot. There was a lot of technology gaps also. Even back in 1947, the shipbuilding industry was transitioning its technology from old-time teak-built wooden ships towards modern-day vessels powered by diesel engines. This technology shift had not taken place in India, and our policy makers were also not ready to invest in that simply because it was not at the center of Indian polity. There was also low to negligible order flows because simply India wasn't exporting anything. See, a ship needs to get orders from both ends. If a ship comes from France to India, it needs to be full. It also needs to get good amount of freight to carry from India to France. India hardly had anything to export, and its policy was emphasizing heavily on import substitution. Think the Swadeshi movement carried on. So essentially for any shipbuilder or anyone who's running the ship, both had no incentive to invest. Hence shipbuilding again went into the back burner. We almost went 200 years back once again. Then came 1961. This was the first time under the leadership of Pandit Nehru, India refocused on shipbuilding. The first and the most important step he took was to merge 2 existing shipbuilders, namely the Eastern Shipping Company as well as the Western Coastal Shipping Company. They were merged to form Shipping Corporation of India. This was the first time anybody after independence has taken a serious look at the shipping industry. One thing it did really well was to rationalize the operations and manage things at scale. There was one single PSU which was mandated with clear focus on building ships. Shipping Corporation of India's incorporation gave some message to Indians as well as investors in the shipbuilding industry that there is something happening here. But not much happened. There was simultaneously policies favored in terms of tonnage tax, subsidies and procurement preferences for Indian yards in government orders, but over time indigenous shipbuilding capability revived, particularly for defense and allied functions. Merchant ships and success remained limited. After that, no government really paid any attention to shipbuilding, either for commercial or naval purpose. Mostly India was surrounded by Asian giants like China, Korea and Japan who produced large-scale ships, and they were highly price competitive. So no Indian entrepreneur ventured into shipbuilding, and those who did went bankrupt. We all know the stories of ABJ Shipyard, GE Shipping and their IBC saga. So what happened next? It was 2014 when the shipbuilding industry was identified as a key sector. Why? Because it creates a ripple effect, boosting steel, electronics, engineering, and defense industries. India's vast coastline and growing maritime trade made shipbuilding a vital decision for India's economic and security reasons. And this was way before COVID, way before Russia invaded Ukraine, way before everything else. It was purely government's vision to turn India into a shipbuilding hub by 2030. And for that, they did give policy support. The first one would be a financial assistance policy, which was essentially a capital subsidy. They were offering subsidies of up to 20% for India-built vessels. So on a single ship made in India worth 10,000 crores, upon completion, government would give 2,000 crores to the shipbuilder. This was a big plus. Second, they made it easy to do the shipbuilding business in India. They simplified the licensing, land allotment, and many ship repair policies. Ship repairing and maintenance was seen very importantly because India is strategically located between the West and the global South. So Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and on the other side US, UK. So any ship traveling from one end to the other can take halt at India and Indian ports for maintenance, repair, refueling, and many other things. So this was a very low-hanging fruit which Indian government identified. Besides that, there was strong defense push. See, India only has one real INS Vikrant as a carrier. The second one came recently. It was only in 2016-17. As per India's naval chief, they said that India should have 3 aircraft carriers, one on the east coast, one on the west coast, and one as a backup for maintenance purposes. The journey is pretty similar to the way India tackled its defense sector. India doesn't look at defense only for its in-house consumption, but also looks at the export markets. So these initiatives have turned India into one of the better known nations in shipbuilding than what it was in the past. Look, challenges remain. Global competition, high financing costs, and limited R&D spend do act as constraint. But the tide is turning. With the new Maritime India vision and Sagarmala projects, India aims to capture 5% of the global shipbuilding market. From building naval destroyers to green hydrogen ferries, India's shipyards are ready to chart a new bold course. Only time will tell how far they go, but it's a very good initiative. You have to dream first to achieve it later. So the next time you see a vessel, it might just be made in India. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe this. You will be finding many more stories of industrial, policy, and economic transformation of multiple nations in my channel. Thank you very much for viewing.